Welcome to Tech at Lunch, the podcast that satisfies your hunger for all things tech while you enjoy your midday meal. So grab your sandwich, tune in, and let's dig in. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Matt.
Hey, I'm John.
And, this week we're kind of going to go down our, I guess you can say, the preventive maintenance rabbit hole one more time. And I think we're going to bring it to a kind of a conclusion with a wrap-up episode. Last week we kind of talked about the, what happens, if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And, that we what we like to also nicknamed our doom and gloom.
Yeah, it was a little
episode.
a little dark.
Morbid curiosity is pretty much what that was.
You should have a plan for when things go bad. I mean, you want to prepare for the best. You want everything to go well, but if you don't plan for the worst,
right,
it's gonna happen.
And the thing is everybody's got one of those Grim Reapers in their front yard. That's always standing there going, "Hey, guess what? This is gonna screw up today." And if you're not prepared for it, then guess what? That particular Grim Reaper will win, and that's also called the gremlins that hide in your equipment.
Yeah.
So what yeah, that too. So when you think about like what we talked about last week, I know Ed, you weren't here. You join us on that one, but is pretty much the doom and gloom episode where this downtime, that it's going to happen. It's just preparing for it.
So I think it's basically wrapped up in two terms, and we'll keep it short. So basically, you're going to do a risk analysis and a failure analysis. So a risk analysis basically says that that there are a certain circumstances or certain situations that you will have downtime. So there will be some downtime for all equipment, uptime or downtime. Or you can have a mean time between failures or before failures. But basically the risk analysis basically lets you say, hey, this is the amount of risk we take by what we have in the equipment. The failure analysis tell you, hey, this is the life cycle and this is what we expect the life expectancy to be of certain equipment. It's just a fact,
So I'll take that a step further. I know you wanted to be quick, but so you talk about failure, you talk about risk. So I think that's something, I can't remember if we really harped on it too much. You should be doing a risk assessment.
Oh yeah,
when you're introducing something into your system. Also, you should do a risk assessment once you've, if you're changing something, a process, and adding something to that process. That's you should still do another risk assessment.
And the fun part is when you talk about risk assessments, the new guy should also be on top of your risk assessment.
Oh, humans are factors too.
Especially if they're brand new and into the situation, or if you get new guy with experience from other plants, or with other equipment.
Don't worry, I got this guy.
Yeah, exactly. The oops, I'll fix it.
I do this all the time.
Yep.
Guy.
Yep. Those are the ones you want to worry about.
So I'll give you like three simple things on that, like just in examples. So I gave what I was speaking about when we're talking risk analysis and failure analysis. So here's an example. We can do both from human or machine. So from a human perspective, when you do a risk analysis, you say, well, hey, I'm going to do some input verification. So basically a person can't put in, if I say it has to be letters, a person can't put in numbers. It'll say pull in a valid name.
Alpha, not alphanumeric.
So that's some things you can do with operators. Or I have recipes so that the person does not have to do any configuration on the machines because I've already gotten with the engineering team. The engineering team is giving me the parameters. The production team has told me what we expect. Here's the ratio that we're going to run per day. That could change. And then the recipes take care of that. And then from a third point of view, you use visual management. There is some type of visualization there that gives a step-by-step process for the person to do that, but you vet that person before they do that process. So you give that person the steps. This person goes through a short test, and if that person doesn't understand a step, you go back until that person understands the step. So those are some things you can do from the human perspective. From the machine perspective, that's where you get into preventive, proactive, not reactive. So you have to be proactive, and because the manufacturer gives you recommendations, you figure if those recommendations work for the plan you have in place for the production you're trying to do. Yeah. Preventive is some of the things you use to prolong some of those things, because you know you've done a proactive, or you've done some analysis to say that I know that this could be a failure point.
Right. Which makes sense.
So you do checks, or you make sure you have lubrication. But those are some of the things that I would do from, say, a doom and gloom.
Yeah, you want to avoid. I mean, corrective happens because standards change, so you have to fix a system, and of course downtime happens, so you have to do corrective at those times. So, I mean, all things considered, if you're doing all the steps that we talked about, you really can avoid the doom and gloom. But Ed, you're like dealing with a new guy by prepping and planning and showing and then testing and validation, right? But like you can even do some of that validation with the checklist we talked about.
Right, exactly.
It's like you can maybe not
PMCS.
maybe you make it simple and it says task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but maybe you say task 1, here's the steps to complete task 1, and then do that, and then that person is learning as they're completing their checklist. Yeah. So it's I mean it's two birds, one stone, but there's a lot of situations like that.
And the thing is hopefully with that, as we get into out of the as you get into like the checklist type of stuff, is the use of cell phones and the ability to scan a QR code when you come up to a piece of equipment, and it's do step 1. Okay, I've confirmed I've done step 1. Now here's step 2. I've confirmed I've done step 2. Now I have written confirmation that you've done all the steps. So if for some certain reason, if your last step is did you get all your tools, and you say yes, and now I've got a wrench floating around on the printer, I kind of know that you didn't do all your steps. But you agreed to it, and now you're ending up into does the reward equal punishment? At that point, which corrective action is, hey, don't do that again. Don't confirm that you've done something without doing your job. Now, if it happens more than once, then corrective action takes effect again. And either it's like, okay, cool, we'll put you on remediative training for a little bit until something happens, or I believe in the world of paying through compliance. As long as they clean the equipment, that's fine. I'm like, and you're going to do that every single day now for the next couple of days until you learn that you should keep your crap out the damn equipment.
Well,
I won't fire you. Believe me, I'll work you, and pray that you quit.
So I would say that that's basically an algorithm. What you're talking about, I think you can take it a step forward. I think you can bring it more into the present day. So what I mean by is, in the new, with all the technology we have, there's machine learning. So the machine itself can say, no.
Yeah, I need this.
This is not going to start, or I'm not going to do whatever until this step happens. So when you validate from your smart technology, your smartphone or tablet or whatever device you're using, the machine is going to say, well, I know what step I'm supposed to be in. I'm not in that step.
Right, exactly.
Or you can't advance.
And the thing is
so use the technology. Obviously, we don't want the technology to stop the line and we don't produce.
Right.
But the technology should be like a check. Like
that's why
the technology is the checklist.
Someone messed up something and they put a sign up. So
that's why you have warning labels on things. And some warning labels, and some warning labels you have to look at and kind of wonder.
Somebody did that.
Yeah, how did we end up with this?
100%. Someone had to do it.
Ask legal.
So they had to say,
ask legal. I'll tell you.
Yeah. We don't talk about them.
Right.
Blemish.
But and the thing is you always take all the data that you're getting out of this stuff and throw it into your management system that me and Ed talked about, and build that process out. Manage it, keep the data secure and inbound where you can go back and look at it. You should always keep your stuff for a couple of years, document retention. But you should also be able to go back and look at it. So if you have it through like an MQTT or smart interface, you're able to track that stuff and go back and take a look at it. Power BI is your friend.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the data analytics we've talked about in previous episodes. Maybe not in this series, but like we talked about predictive, or preventative. I'm sorry. We talk about preventative. We talk about corrective. We touch barely on predictive. But if you're not using, these data points you're getting from your sensors and your switches and your failure points and your downtime, if you're not learning, that I think that the biggest word or the best phrase you could use for like an incident if a downtime were to occur is like, what is your containment? So what did you do to contain the problem? And then what are you doing to not only contain the problem in the moment, but contain the problem overall? How are you correcting the process now? Like, how are we moving forward with this? Because, yeah, like you were saying, Ed, it's, we want to minimize downtime, but we say minimize because you can't rule out downtime. You need to do maintenance at some point. There's no way.
And it's like if you start talking about printers, you start getting into the fact that, okay, cool, I'm getting a layer shift here or a delamination problem here.
Yeah.
What's causing that? And how many parts have I produced that's had like a delam or a shift that got let through the process, and now they're sitting over at QC. Yes, I understand I'm producing at a at a certain rate to meet a production volume if you're producing like parts that are being sold in other locations, like for instance Amazon. You have to keep your crates to a certain level. However, how do you know that this stuff isn't being pushed through the line that's not been there before? The thing is looking at your data. We talked about it before. Data is the new oil, or did now, for that matter, is you constantly have to worry about and look at how that, and what you said with containment is how many pieces of build did I get that now I have to go back and either rework or scrap.
Yeah.
I don't want to continue building. And if it's like, well, I know that this came up last night. Okay, cool. That tells me that everything from the shift before you to the current shift is now suspect. And all of that must be quarantined. And the thing is we use quarantine not in the COVID sense. It's in the, hey, let me take a look at that real quick. Validate that didn't happen. But the thing is I can constantly go back and look and go, okay, cool, that's one shift. That's another shift. That's another shift. Oh, now I see the problem. And now you can tell kind of where that shift began. You go back and look at the logs.
So I would say you probably want to do a sampling process just like most places do, where they do quality control, where they take, hey, we're going to take 0.5% of what we produce, and we're going to take it to a lab and test it against some standard. And from that standard, you should be able to say, hey, we need to go back and check this. Or if you're not able to do that with a print form, you might want to do a first part release. And then with the first part release, at least the first one. And then maybe you have to invest in, maybe adding some microcontrollers and maybe some vision technology to kind of monitor and at least let you know if it's starting to shift. Maybe you can do some things, with like we talked about YOLO. You can use YOLO to take images and learn and say, hey, I can tell by this height, from the images that you gave me that were the master that we off by whatever. Stop.
And it's don't be afraid to use consumer audits. To hit to test your maintenance. You'll hear them out there. Consumer product audit. Utilize that process to validate that I want to rate this piece of equipment or whatever to the standard that we think the customer holds us to. If this doesn't match, okay, then what's causing the problem? I'm going to go back to its point of origin.
Yeah, quality checks in general need to happen. Your audits, at the end of the day, a lot of companies are probably like, okay, well, I know that maybe I need to make a checklist for preventive maintenance, but what should I put on there?
Right.
Okay, well, what are your failure points? So doing an assessment, like we talked about doing a risk assessment, but that could also be a full assessment of what your process is for maybe that section or that area, and you can assess your failure points. We did it. I was looking at, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the James Webb Telescope. It's the successor to the Hubble, but whenever that went to space, they had the most failure points for a space mission or a satellite that has ever had, and that was only like 350 something like that. So I can guarantee you might have somewhere more than that failure points. Yeah,
Hubble had a failure point day one.
Yeah, exactly.
The lens.
So things break immediately. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so analyze your failure points, use that data to understand what's going to happen and when something might happen, and then we talked about it before, like when the doom and gloom hits, what's your rollback plan look like? How do you get back to clean? How do you get back to your operational process again? And honestly, if you can find out what your failure points are, then you can start saying, okay, if this fails, I should do this. Yeah. Not to say that it's failed yet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, well, this bolt has failed. Okay, what is it? Okay, the threads. All right, so we got to make sure we tap this out next time before or something like that.
But now if you start thinking about that, you start thinking about the fact that every time I do a preventative maintenance call or check, I should do it like a calibration cube. If I know I'm bumping something, I should do a calibration cube and keep a master nearby.
Exactly.
But now, this kind of goes up against, I guess, what you can think when you call talking about, additive. When you start talking about, retractive maintenance, is what I would do, honestly, is, and this kind of goes along with what we were thinking, is if you're going to do anything, reactive, preventative, and you do a cube, I want to take a master cube from the first time you print anything, so you're in the best situation you can, and inside of a lab. I want to take that cube and I want to turn it into a retractive, piece. So I want to go in there and I want to have this cut out of billet aluminum. But I want to have the actual piece cut out. So whenever I do create my my test pieces when I'm doing maintenance, I can just drop them in and make sure they fit. And they should slowly but surely slide them up. Then dump them out.
And you can vet those with metrology, like there are services that you can vet the dimensions that you want.
Yeah.
You can do a go no go, or you can actually.
It's like a go no go gauge. Yeah. If you meet it, you do it.
Yeah. Or if you want, maybe it's aerospace related, or maybe it's something that requires some fine or some tight tolerances. Mm-hmm. Then maybe you use metrology. Also. Yeah. To have blocks or like you said, have something that's verified by metrology that the dimensions are correct.
Yeah.
So when you during your go no go, that gauge has been verified.
Right.
And then of course you would have to have maintenance on that gauge. It would have to be certified once a year.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, when you consider all the things that we've gone over, what was it? Checklist. We talked about. Mechanical, and we talked about IT side, and then in the end, we're kind of mixing everything. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all mixed together.
Yeah.
If you're driving for, your best version of your system, print farm or industrial system, whatever, then you need to use all these things. It's a plan for success. It should be a plan for minimal downtime. And at the end of the day, if you're not doing anything towards these things, you're not going to have any preventive maintenance. You're going to have only corrective, and I doubt you last very long.
Yeah. So, and, the thing is, and when you start talking about, like data retention, when it comes down to preventive maintenance data retention, honestly, I don't know how y'all feel it. You can let me know. I guarantee you I'm probably wrong. Happens a lot. I think that when you do a preventive maintenance check, you should hold on to that equipment, that check for equipment life, say, plus a year or two.
Yeah.
Until you sell all your equipment, until you sell all products made by that piece of equipment.
I mean, that makes sense because, at the end of the day, the worst thing that, maintenance worker would have is that, hey, we got that old system over there. It's on the fritz again. Can you go look at it?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not taking care of it, then that makes those jobs harder. But also, if you're keeping it, it's like, hey, it's on the fritz again. Okay, let me go look off the sample, which is this unit that was down last year. Let me see what that looks like. Compare it to what's going on now. Copy the configuration over if I have to, and now we're in a good operating status again.
Right.
However, if you don't keep those backups like that, then you've got no place to roll back to. You're planning for failure.
So I would say if a print farm is something that you're considering as a business opportunity, you should be thinking more towards Industry 4.0 with digitalization. You should be thinking more like a digital twin. Not only those documents, if you want to keep those on file as a hard copy, you need a digital copy. Configuration files should be kept digital. You should be able to take any configuration and dump that directly into another machine to run. From a print farm perspective, I shouldn't have to sit and take days. It should almost be like a chef cooking a dish. He knows what ingredients must be put into the dish.
You don't have to like go and follow a recipe.
And he knows how to prepare it because he's done it thousands of times. So if you have that data is the recipe. And then it should be easy to go from one system to another system.
I kind of want to, like, I'm sitting here thinking about something, and I don't know if it's something we've talked about yet in the course of what we're doing. At least inside the preventative maintenance pocket. I know we've kind of talked about preventative maintenance parts, but I want to see what y'all's opinion on this. Should you have or run a secondary, say, SAP instance for parts or whatever, if you're going to do like a logistics-based system, for your preventative maintenance parts, or should you keep that inside your major freaking warehousing subsystem? It's a fun one.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I already have my answer immediately, and it's separate them.
Okay, why?
The reason being is like I don't want, if there's a downtime on like one of my major robots, like let's say I need to change a bed or a nozzle or a hot end fast, I'm not trying to go through and see all the rest of the items on the list.
Yeah, makes sense.
I need to know, boom, I need to get there quick. I need to, and also there needs to be a different type of, hopefully there be, this is kind of dictates with what the business is asking for, but hopefully there's like some type of like time span, like, hey, the business orders these pieces, it'll show up maybe in 3 days, business days. But if maintenance is ordering it, we need somebody delivering it in a couple hours.
Right.
Or we need it delivered now. So that's kind of the main topic that why I would bring that up. I get it. It's a different environment that you'd have to spin up, and it is a little bit of extra work. But at the end of the day, it's about the response time.
Yep.
And if you can get these, like, yes, if the world was perfect and we asked in advance for everything that we're going to need in every single situation, we wouldn't need to expressly order consumables. But the world is not a perfect place. Chemicals don't react perfectly every single time. You have random issues and failures that happen everywhere. So I think a focus like that would make sense to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I would say maybe SAP is not the solution.
Yeah,
maybe it's just an idea.
No, I'm just saying maybe a custom MES system is a solution.
Yeah.
And a custom MES system compartmentalizes every system.
Modular,
and that system is running by itself. It just sends data. So maybe the issue is either SAP is not capable or SAP is not being used correctly. I don't know the answer to that. But I know if you did a custom MES system, then that system, which is difficult. What I'm saying is not something simple.
Yeah, it's not like a one pager you could just throw up.
But if you made your own custom MES system, then that system can talk to all the other systems, and the warehousing system is separate from the actual, where I'm monitoring the system and pulling parts or whatever. But you should also know that the life of whatever that printer is, you should understand the consumables, and you should also understand the life of each of those parts. Of course, you don't want to order one of each thing because that's expensive, but you should at least have an idea what will and what will not through predictive.
Yeah. And the thing is, I agree with both of you. I honestly do. One thing I think that splitting them up and having them part of the MES system, I think is dual systems is the best alternative. Think about this, okay? The 7-Elevens in Japan, that they don't have anybody working there doing checkouts. That you just pretty much grab, you walk in.
Like 24 hour?
Right.
They don't even have security?
Right.
Somebody standing outside?
Nothing. No, that's not even that.
Camera, you got a guy.
Well,
in the
well, the thing is, you also have at the airports now, where you
Yeah.
walk in, you take what you need,
Yeah,
to
it's just
you
a
leave,
leave.
Yeah, I know.
It's
and it
vending.
automatically,
They do
deducts
vending.
it. Yeah, it automatically deducts it out of your,
Don't worry.
like.
I've cleared your bank account. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
But it's
you
like
can have that Snickers.
it's like it automatically deducts it out of your Amazon account, so it
Yeah.
automatically dings you on
No,
your
that
Amazon
makes
account.
sense.
So the thing is why can't I do that with preventive maintenance parts? If I need a nozzle or I need a bearing or something like that, I should be able to walk into my
10 mil bit.
my area. Oh, those are always going. You'll never find those things. Those things are very rare. Is walk into my supermarket and grab what I got to get and walk out. Have it flag the RFID system and walk out. It's going to always deduct from there.
Yeah.
And then I'd add everything on the backside.
And there are vending systems that's used in that.
Well, see, that's what I was
typical
going to say
application.
next, too, is like instead of having it open freely, you can pick it.
Yeah.
It's like you have a dedicated cost, and this vending machine is just counting.
Yeah.
Or you put your employee number in to get one, and it's
Yeah.
like, hey, man, you've ordered 4 of these in the
Yeah.
past hour. What's going on?
Like
Yeah.
it knows when you. I would have said it where it would know when you'd badge in with your
Yeah, that makes
your
sense.
badge.
Or
You walk in, get what
punch
you
in
need
the
to work
code.
out.
See,
Yeah.
and I like that solution better than kind of a free floating, because like then you wouldn't have to put RFIDs on specific things. You have an RFID on the machine, and your machine is just counting up or logging whatever you're doing.
Have it like a cash register.
Yeah.
You walk in, beep. Okay, I'm changing this part out. Adds it
Mm-hmm.
to its consumables or removes it from its consumables.
All right, pay me $300. No.
Yeah. And you can also tie that to a KPI.
What is it? The government buying nozzles?
Yeah.
The government's buying nozzle.
But you
Yeah.
can also
Got that vibranium nozzle.
Yeah. You can also integrate
High
that
powered
with
aluminum.
a KPI system
Right.
Yeah. No,
that
that's
you
true.
can track. You can track.
Yeah, like, hey, third shift, you guys are using 20 nozzles, and first shift doesn't even need one. What's going on?
Yeah,
Right.
and then you get trending data.
Are you
So-
pocketing my nozzles?
And
Right.
then you can look at parts dispatched and what was happening in the line.
Yeah.
And you can compare that data
Mhm.
and say, well, wait a minute, we have an actual issue here.
Yeah.
No one's just taking consumables, or no one's just getting parts. They actually are having failures. Why?
Yeah. Which happens all the time, by the way. Like small changes, like especially with robots, if you're working at industrial level, they won't be like a human and have a gut feeling that something's not normal, like because they've done it 1,000 times.
It just won't work.
That robot's just gonna do it another 1,001, and it's gonna rip that bolt off, or it's gonna rip that piece off, and it's gonna go on and say, "All right, next."
Yeah, or they're gonna just clap hands.
So
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's a rule called, the rule of bots.
Yeah.
Do as you told.
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
You tell it to do something, it's gonna do.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's like Linux. But I just that's just something that was crossed my mind. It's like because that goes along with our management. With how do you manage your preventative maintenance?
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what my trend data is every year based on what my consumables are.
Mhm.
Not because they're full consumables. If the line's ordering the parts
Mhm.
and they're being updated from logistics, that's a different story than preventive maintenance taking parts
Yeah.
and saying, "Let me fix this." I want to see how many emergency nozzles I'm deploying to the line
Yeah, you can make a
instead of-
designation too. Yeah.
instead of having somebody ordering them through the system to have them delivered.
Right.
If you're not going through an actual system saying, "Hey, I need parts," and you're getting them out of the preventive maintenance cage, that's telling me there's somebody that's either working the system,
Yeah.
but now I see an uptrend in parts on one side and downtrend on another, but my maintenance guys are replacing parts on a printer that they shouldn't be replacing because it's not part of
Right.
regular operator maintenance.
And I would say one little small part, because we're getting close to closing, is what do we have to do something with the part too.
Yeah.
So if you get a part, you should bring back a part,
No, it's true.
and
No,
that part should be counted
That's-
on the other end, because we could maybe take those parts and
Yeah.
we don't want to throw them in a landfill. Maybe we want to be responsible and
Recycling.
recycle.
repurpose for them. You can upcycle something and use
Yeah.
it for something else. I mean, to be honest with you, we like it's something that most things should be considered for if they're one-use items or consumables in that sense. But yeah, no, you need to. I would say maintain. I know we talk about zero carbon footprint, but it's about It's about the environment around your farm as well. Like it's about the workers in your farm. So like at a certain point, you need to have some type of limit that you're kind of sticking to, and just don't go throwing waste away without properly disposing of it. Like that's just one thing is the radiation, toxic plastics, microplastics. We hear about these all the time, but that's part of why they get everywhere. It's like people just throw things around.
And I would say this too, or just one more note on like when we're talking about parts. You can do things if you're going to go to a vending system. The vending system says, "Hey, I can only give you 33% of what's in here before I have to have somebody with
sign off
with clearance or a shift boss come and figure out." That way, you protect yourself from one shift exhausting all of the parts needed.
That's true.
You know, or you
put
alert
a whole different shift out because you got to go get part now.
Or engineering gets an alert so they can go to the line and understand what's happening.
Right.
So that they can resolve whatever issue if it is an actual issue.
You should have real-time monitoring. If you don't have real-time monitoring or alerting or some type of MQTT system that's telling you what's happening on your line, you're always going to be reactive.
If you're not constantly using your management system,
you're
like
always gonna be
if you're not using your preventive maintenance management system and your documentation checks, and you're not maintaining your equipment correctly, you start really getting into the weeds of you're not only causing your own problems, but cause problems for other people. And then, that's not just going to hurt you, in one pocketbook. It'll hit you in both of them because now I'm burning parts to repair a piece of equipment that may not be able to be fixed because it's gone to the wayside and it's now, in a state of disrepair. And, is that why it's always good to get printers that are, or for your print farms that are easily, changeable, or ones that are built to withstand some industrial, needs? And that could be a whole nother, whole different episode.
If you talk like you want a NASCAR, or you want to get any one of the cars on the Grand Prix, like the F1 cars, or you want to get a truck that's going to be like a dump truck. Like there's a complete difference. The dump truck, you're not going to be switching out tires and gas and all that. But for that F1, like if they stop, fill it up, go.
Right.
Needs to go now.
So I would say probably something we need to explore in the future is utilization.
Yep.
So maybe you have a print farm, as an example, and I don't want to go too in depth because maybe we'll
do another episode.
But just think about utilization. Maybe I have 20 printers, and I only use a third of those printers, or maybe go through a fetting. Make sure everything's good.
And
then you only and if you keep doing that, you cycle on and off the printers based on your utilization that you pick.
And I think going into
that's a great idea,
the utilization topic, and also the the hardware choices, I think we can definitely do a couple good episodes on that. Kind of like, I don't know what a design your print farm kind of
that'd be cool.
series. I think we'll get into soon and
that'll be better than yours. That's fine.
We'll kind of talk about. Don't worry, he's still trying to build his around.
It's built.
It's built. That's how many times you printed with it. Yep, there you go.
Well, it spit out plastic. I don't know if you call that a print, but it heated up some plastic and dropped it on the print bed to count it.
But the thing is when we go through that, we'll talk about the different printers and stuff like that, and how to build your print farm, what type of software you should probably be using and running, and also kind of how do you set up your consumable part, systems to, kind of work through that, and who knows, we may have some fun stuff going on with that. So, I think we're getting, like what Ed was saying, we're getting towards the end, and I guess, as we do this wrap up, like we always do, we'll kind of get everybody's final thoughts on, preventive maintenance, because we've kind of, I think, finally beat that rapid to death. But, I just want to, I'm looking at the numbers again, I tend to dink with those things every now and then. 1,844 all-time downloads. You know, for me, that is freaking absolutely insane. And I want to say thank you to every single one of y'all. You know, some of y'all holding it down in some certain areas, man, that, you know, I've never been to, but I think it would be kind of fun to go. So, you know, especially some of our Singaporean, you know, listeners, never thought we'd be listened to there, but, you know, let us know kind of what's going on down there. You know, I'm kind of over there. I'm kind of curious. Kind of curious about the 3D printing and additive manufacturing space. You know, shoot us an email. And we kind of want to talk. Who knows? We may do an episode with y'all, and you kind of, or anybody doing anything interesting. You know, let us know kind of what you're working on. You know, and we will definitely, you know, take a look at it, and if we think it's interesting, which we probably will, we'll get a hold of you, and we'll do a you know, over the interwebs, you know, episode. So, you know, but I just want to say thank you to everybody. We'll definitely work on that. The designing your print form, stuff, you know, series coming up. And, you know, I want to kind of say this. If we can get enough people interested, I would like to do a kind of like a happy hour. You know, we go live for an hour, and we have conversations about, you know, 3D printing. And if you have any questions on, you know, 3D printing issues and stuff like that that you're having, you can ask us that. You know, we'd ask you to send them to us ahead of time, you know, so we could kind of see what's going on. But if there's enough interest, you know, a possible doing like a happy hour where we kind of walk you through some issues and stuff like that, you know, it's definitely something that, you know, we would definitely think about. And then, you know, of course, we have some other stuff coming. The Printed Heritage is out now. Y'all go take a look at that, printedheritage.com. Go get yourself some lithophanes and some other stuff that we got going on. So, you know, let us know there, kind of, you know, what y'all thinking. And I think we're currently planning a couple YouTube videos that could be a little hilarious. So we'll see how that goes. They'll be a little more sciencey than, well, I guess you could say mathy than usual. So some of y'all math nerds will enjoy that. But, you know, for me, I say thank you. You know, I really do. We love y'all. We wholly appreciate it. And, you know, we hope that, you know, we have some conversation with some of y'all. And who knows, maybe even come out and visit. So, you know, from my side, I say thank you. And, you know, with the preventive maintenance side of the house, do it. It's needed. You know, don't let it slack. Because if you let it slack, everything else slacks.
It's more expensive.
Exactly. Your stuff is going to break. So, you know, I'm going to pass on the other two. Y'all have a good one, and we'll talk to you later.
So, like I said, I would just like to say we appreciate you guys, you know, supporting us. We appreciate everybody that's listening. If you guys are interested, like Nick said, maybe we could try to do a live chat where we do some things live if that's not possible, or, you know, maybe we don't have enough support for that. We'll get there. Maybe we can do a Q&A. You know, you send in some questions, and we do some. I'll give you some answers, or maybe some people local also. If anybody that's local, let us know. We could, you know, do a meet and greet somewhere. But we appreciate the support. Turn it over to John.
Yeah, like an Ask Me Anything. I think that'll work. I think that'll be nice. But yeah, guys, I always echo these guys. I'm very appreciative, very thankful. You know, didn't think anybody would even care to listen about some of these things, so it's nice to hear that some people are. As far as the universities and things like that, we definitely, since we went to Rapid, we talked to a few universities. You know, Mississippi State. We talked to Maine University. We talked to. We didn't talk to Penn State, but Penn State's got an additive manufacturing program.
They do.
So, like, all I'm saying is if you're overseas and you've got projects that you're working on with your university, and you're saying, hey, maybe we have a tough time with funding and things like that, if you partner up with a U.S. university as well, we can help with getting contacts and things like that, then that'll help you with your project. So it'll also be nice for us and enriching, because we get to see the work, and it's just interesting to us. So, like, honestly, just learning about it.
And the thing is we may jump in there and get involved with you.
Yeah, exactly. Anything we can do to help. I mean, it's the same thing. We just involve us. We can, like, we'll tell you if we don't have an answer. You know, we'll tell you if we might have an answer. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you know, reach out to us. If you've got any topics you want us to cover, if you've got any projects you want us to cover, or questions or anything like that, just reach out and stay tuned, guys. We got some pretty funny stuff, some pretty cool stuff coming down the pipes.
There you go. Have a good one.
Take care.
That's all for this episode of Tech at Lunch. Thanks for tuning in and joining us for this tech-filled lunch break. We hope you enjoy the show, and don't forget to subscribe on all channels. And also, you can find us on YouTube under Vulcanar Technology Solutions. And join us for our next episode, which gets published every Wednesday at 8 a.m. All right, y'all. Have a good one. See you later.